Thank you very much for this kind introduction. First of all, I would like to wish a good day to all participants from Vienna. Also, thanks to the organizers for inviting me and us to talk a little bit about the projects that we are implementing in Austria. My contribution has the following structure. First of all, like the previous speakers, I will give you an overview of selective dates and figures about Austria and also the Austrian forestry and wood industries. Then I will concentrate on the Austrian Forest Fund and the Austrian Wood Initiative that was implemented within the scope of this wood fund. And this initiative will then be the core of my presentation. I will present to you the objectives and also the individual actions. Austria is a small country, a country with many mountains. Our territory in comparison to Sweden or also Germany is relatively small. We have 85,000 square kilometers and about 8.9 million inhabitants with quite a moderate population density of 106 inhabitants per square kilometers. Our total GDP amounts to 367 billion euro, so we rank 28th at global level. And in the following, you will see that our forestry and timber industry makes a significant contribution to this added value. Now let's talk about the Austrian forest. It is a very predominant element of our landscape because it covers half of our national territory. That is 4 million hectares of forest. There is an overproportional production efficiency with 337 cubic meters per hectare. However, these are figures of the last national forest inventory. The most current figures are even higher. So the production capacity has even increased in comparison to other countries such as Sweden, for instance. In general, there is a typical distribution for a mountainous country. There is a high proportion of softwood. More than 50% is covered by spruce. Another particularity of the Austrian forestry sector is its fragmentation. There are more than 80% of our forest land is privately owned, and almost 50% of this land is smaller than 200 hectares. And this brings with it particular challenges in the forestry sector. For instance, we need to adapt our forests to climate changes and need special management practices. The Austrian forest is managed sustainably. For instance, in the last 60 years, our forest land has increased by about 300,000 hectares. That is 3.5 times the area of Berlin. So an increase of 3,400 hectares per year. And also our wood stock has increased by about 390 million cubic meters. Now, specific figures for 2020. Last year, 16.8 million cubic meters have been harvested. That means that the figures were 11% lower than the figures of 2019. And the percentage of damaged wood, similar to other countries, was quite high. In our case, it was 53%. The percent of wood that was used was 71% in 2020. So these were figures about forestry. Now we will continue with the timber industry. This is a map. On this map, you can see countries in relation to their importance as regards the timber industries. You can see here that Austria is a very small country territory-wise. You can barely see it on the world map. In all of the areas of wood production, wood use, export and import, so the entire timber industry, Austria, in relation to other countries, is quite important. So we are a global player in the wood and timber industries. So what does this mean? What does it translate to in figures? The Austrian forestry and wood economy provides for 300,000 jobs. Every 15th job has to do with the forestry and wood industry, and every 17th euro of the value generated is generated by the forestry and wood industry. So the entire value added chain amounts to more than 20 billion euro. So as I said, Austria is a global wood player. We are the third biggest importer of coniferous roundwood, the fifth biggest exporter of coniferous sawn softwood, and the fourth biggest exporter of particle boards or OSB panels. So we have generated quite a lot of money with these sectors. So what are the current challenges for our sector? Over the course of this event, you have heard a lot already in this regard. And of course, these challenges also apply to other countries, and they apply to Austria as well. First and foremost, there's climate change that brings with it biotic and abiotic threats. We have also to deal with conflicting interests, protection versus making use of it. So we want to conserve our biodiversity, our species, but we also want to preserve our forest as a carbon sink and use its materials. There's also a challenge with regard to research in the field of bioeconomy. There's so many possibilities to use wood. And of course, in the long run, there might possibly be a scarcity of wood. And this would then lead to the question of supply with this resource. We will need active forest management, and also we will need to provide the respective infrastructure and logistics. Another important challenge is the efficient use of wood. We are talking about materials efficiency here and the circular economy in the context of cascade use that needs to be taken into account as well. And another challenge is, of course, training and research. So what is the Austrian response to these challenges? The response is our Austrian Wood Initiative. This initiative tries to use innovations and technologies in order to highlight specific areas. It is about establishing wood-based solutions and services to make a positive contribution to the resource and energy transformation. Of course, it is also about safeguarding jobs in the regions and also about research, training, and technology transfer. And of course, we also want to maintain this sector because it is of such a high economic value. Our Austrian Wood Initiative is called Think Wood. And it urges us to think about wood when we talk about construction, housing, heating, training, climate protection, finding bio-based solutions for the economy and also for society. So it is about taking wood into account, but not only taking it into account, but using it. The formal framework of this initiative is the Austrian Forest Fund, which was entered into force in February 2021. It includes 350 million euro. There are 4 objectives, and the 4th objective that is highlighted on my slide here has to do with the increased material and energetic use of the resource wood as an active contribution to climate change stewardship. There are 10 actions that need to be implemented, and 2 of them, namely number 7 and number 9, have to do with the energetic use and the material use of wood. And they provide the basis for our Austrian Wood Initiative. Here you can see the different actions and measures in more detail, different modules, so to speak. We have the 2 silos, material use and energetic use. For material use, there are 5 subgroups: governance, wood-based construction, innovation, training, and communication. And as regards the energetic use, there is infrastructure and research. And just briefly, I would like to address the individual modules. For example, the module governance. It comprises wood policy questions at national and European level, and it is also about improving the framework for the use of wood and timber, for example, technical regulations, constructions, regulations, etc. And here we will also establish a network of technical experts that will provide technical support. We have also planned to establish a bioeconomy cluster, and the next area would be wood-based construction. This is about increasing the percentage of wood in construction. For instance, by publishing model tenders. And it is also about specific investments in large-scale wood-based constructions. And in total, there are 20 million euro that can be used in this regard. So there's investment bonus of €1 per kilogram of wood used. Another important area is innovation and research. There's also 20 million euro available for this module. Scientific questions are the center of this module. So we try to take everything into account that has to do with research. Training is another fundamental part of our Austrian Wood Initiative, from the primary to the tertiary sector. And we already heard today, this morning, that the Bauhaus idea by Professor Schellenhuber, or the European Bauhaus Initiative that was launched by President von der Leyen. Within this context, we intend to establish 2 endowment professorships, and there will also be a doctoral study group in order to implement this strategy on the ground. Then the next point is communication. Awareness raising is very important. In our Wood Initiative, it is about sensitizing the general public, the consumers, about the use and utilization of wood and convince them to use wood. There are different initiatives and activities, from events to movies and documentaries on this issue. The next big area is the area of energy, the energetic use of wood. It is about the production of gas, hydrogen, and fuel based on wood in order to cover different research projects. We have also made available a large fund. This brings me to the end of my presentation, and now I'm looking forward to your questions. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Rappold. I have a question on the energetic use. In Professor Schellenhuber's presentation, we heard that we should be a little bit reserved when it comes to the energetic use of wood at the end of this cascade. How does this apply to Austria? If you remember the challenges that I mentioned, I said that this cascading use is a big challenge in Austria. The percentage of the critical use of wood is quite big. This has to do with the fact that damaged wood, for example, wood infested by the bark beetle, had been used increasingly for energetic uses. There will be further options within the realm of the bioenergy. And of course, this is also a priority area of our Wood Initiative, to increase the percentage of this, or to decrease, decrease the percentage of the renewable resource wood for energetic use. And it is also about making this sector autonomous as regards energy, making it CO2 carbon neutral. So this means using wood efficiently for different energetic purposes. Of course, this is not only about wood, but also bio-based resources, byproducts of agriculture, etc., and other materials that contain wood. Thank you very much. Lena Eck submitted a question. What about the amount of the FSC certified forests in Austria and PEFC certified forests? I don't have the exact figures, but PEFC is about 3/4 and FSC is just a few percentage points. Are there any plans for the future to change that? In Austria, we have a very rigid Forest Protection Act, which is very specific in its regulations forest-wise. In the past, we saw certification mainly as a market instrument, and we used it correspondingly. In the medium term, we don't have any plans to change this stance, although we know that at European level the discussion is moving in the direction that countries support various certification schemes and also organize it at state level. And of course, we are responsible for state standards, and our Forest Act covers all of this, and our forest institutions in the regions and at local level take this into account. Another question on the standardization of building codes. The question has to do with harmonization. Why has harmonization not yet been reached? Well, this is a competency of the different states in Austria, responsibility of the different states, and not a responsibility of the government. So we are trying to bring about harmonization as much as possible. We have received very positive signals from our federal states and the persons in charge that they are very willing to move in the right direction, and in the course of the next 2 to 3 years, of course, we will try to find a harmonized approach, or maybe even national regulations in this regard for the use of wood, for instance. Maybe a last question, and then we can open the discussion and let the other speakers join us. You mentioned the EU Green Deal and also the new European Bauhaus Initiative and also the EU Renovation Wave. What does this mean for you specifically in Austria? With these programs and with the European Wood Initiative, well, all of this even started before Commission President von der Leyen started the EU Bauhaus Initiative, and we believe that it is a good platform, a great narrative in order to use these different elements in a bigger picture. So we, for example, as I said, we have planned to establish these endowment professorships within the context of the European Bauhaus program. And we also want to have a group of doctoral candidates on this issue. And of course, Bauhaus has to do with the Green Deal specifically and with these conflicting interests with the Green Deal. So our objective is to build a platform in order to have a constructive dialogue about these conflicting interests at national level. So from our point of view, this is a very positive initiative, a very effective platform at European level that is able to bring the different countries together to find a harmonized solution on these issues. Another question has been submitted. Could you maybe show it on the screen? The question is by Stefan Kudermann. He asks about the amount of roundwood import from Germany to Austria. I don't know, unfortunately. I have to ask my colleagues. Yes, I can do it bilaterally, and there is a specific table, but I don't know the figures yet. Yes, you offered that our audience can contact you bilaterally.